And everything I do symbolizes what I believe in. Even when it comes to my laundry, I'm like, well, equality and whatnot. I'm just going to go ahead and throw those colors and with those whites. And then it'll be like the melting pot of America. We're stand good together. But honestly, it's just because I'm too lazy and I don't really understand how bleach works. And I know it's bad for colors. And I just lazy. But I do it for colors, so, screw them whites. And I would have to say, I'm just a progressive person in particular. And no, I'm not talking about the car insurance. Are you fucking kidding me? It's like when I have to explain what progressive is to like people that are pretty reasonable age and millennials and stuff like that, it's just sad, really. And it's not sad because those guys are dumb. It's sad because the lesson's so sad because I don't know what it means myself. It's kind of like the blind leading the blind. And I've heard that before, but honestly, I think it's kind of racist to the blind. Or blindest? Disabilityist? I don't know what you call that. Look it up. I could just switch over to the app in Safari. Just look it up right now. Nah, too lazy. God, I love Google. I think someone's already said this, and I might be ripping somebody off, but holy crap, I just love the fact that I was never an adult, and I just grew up, and this is how I grew up. I just looked up stuff on Google. That is how I grew up. I was like, do my taxes? Check Google. Getting audited because I did my taxes wrong? Check Google. How do I get my homepage to be Google? Yeah, Google. I know I can't stop laughing, but I think the whole idea of this part of the stand-up is just because the word Google is so fun to say. It is a bit ironic that it's so fun to say and supposedly so fun to work at. I mean, you can't have that much fun in one noun. Except the noun fun, obviously. It's like someone should just make a company called Fun. Doesn't really get anything done. Hey, there's your logo. You're fucking welcome, whoever steals this idea from me. Here's looking at you, Disney, and your black stormtrooper. I think the most terrible thing about me is my ability to grab shitty friends. Like if my friend were all Pokemon, it would probably be the third generation because they're all crappy, shitty, basic, and a bunch of liars. It kind of makes me wonder how the third generation got a remake. But actually, when I'm thinking about it, it might actually be the sixth generation because realistically, all my friends, I've only got like 2 legendary friends, while all the other generations have at least 9 or 10 legendaries. But if I could keep going, I think I would just label, if I didn't have to pick a generation, I just think I'd label all my friends as baby Pokemon because they're so immature and useless and never used for competitive play. And like, they're not just useless and crappy and immature, but they're usually bad, and I feel really bad when I have to stick by them because they're my friends, but no one else is going to love me, so I gotta stick by them and how shitty they are. Which kind of brings me to one of my most favorite games. It's Assassin's Creed, but I really can't get into any new ones. I'm talking about the PSP Assassin's Creed, where it's just like Altair and he's just going around randomly killing people. And one of his favorite quotes is, Bastok tells this guy, interrogates him to get information about his friend, and all I can think about is that quote he tells him right before he kills him. The guy's like, oh yeah, and he molests children and stuff. And he's like, oh, but I don't do anything wrong. It's just because he's my friend. And Altair looks over and he just stabs him right in the stomach. He says, you can always judge a man by his friends. I thought it was so cool, but then I rethought about that and then I was like, shit, I'd totally be fucked if that was true. Come on, friend, step it up. At least if you were a Pokemon, I'd be able to IV and EV train you. But no, you're just useless. It's like, hey, Cooney, sleep with Sarah and make sure that you're with plenty of IVs. And they're like, but we're 2 girl Pokemon. Like, bitch, I said sleep with each other. And it kind of brings me to my friend JT. He's pretty dumb, and he likes to do the whole be really dumb and stick his stuff in his mouth. And he was talking about this girl, right? And JT was like, hey, that girl is like what we call the opposite of retard. And one of my other friends is like, you shouldn't say that. And he's like, I I said opposite of retard. And I was like, are you saying it's the opposite and she's a retard? Or are you saying she's the opposite of retard? And he's like, the opposite of retard. And I was like, okay, the opposite of retard. And the whole time, my friend's like, just staring at us like we're assholes. And and so I was like, what's the opposite of retard? And he was like, clearly a genius. Yo, genius. And I was like, okay, well, just say it one more time, clarify it for me, because it doesn't seem to make any sense. And then my bud, he's like, oh, the opposite of a retard is a genius, right? And I was thinking about it, and I was like, no, I'd probably say the opposite of a retard is a psycho. Yes, a psycho. I mean, you get the retard and you get the nice, Forrest Gump type of stuff, and then you're thinking they can't ever do anything wrong, and then bam, you're thinking, oh wait, no, the opposite is a psychopath. And all this is really okay for me to say because I have a mild cerebral palsy, so, it's like when black people call themselves the N-word. Right? At this point, I can just picture the crowd just staring at me like, what the fuck is wrong with him? Oh, wait, he said he had mild cerebral palsy. And I'm not even saying that, right? Like, if we want to get totally real here, I don't even know what mild is. Now, I buy the mild Cacane Mexican salsa, and I don't know if that means it's hot or it's not. There's only two things. There's mild and regular, and I'm not too sure if mild means a little less than regular or a little more than regular. But it does mean all the way. And yes, wait, no, oops. It means it's not all the way. That's the point of mild. It's not all the way, I assume. And that brings up a very good point that I totally forgot. So I'm really showing here that I'm very mentally disabled. Which there's nothing wrong with that. But, just proving it. It reminds me of the time where I met my ex-girlfriend, and she told me she worked with special privileged people and helping them, and all I could think about was, oh, what, you're gonna love dating me. And guess what? She did it. This is very uncommon for women to totally regret being with me. Out of 11, I would say 11 wanted not to be with me at the end. I guess that's kind of what breakups are, but, I could imagine some people being like, hey, I learned something, and I don't regret ever dating him. But, no, that'll never be the case if you date me. Now you know who I am. It was fun. Later.